This is a story about David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, two iconic rock frontmen with little in common except for maybe two things. One, they both sang for Van Halen, and two, they both hated the other one's guts. But in 2002, they decided they should add one more thing in common: a stage. This is the story of Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth's failed 2002 tour.
All joking and nonsense aside for at least 4 seconds here, Sam, I am delighted to be doing this with you. This is going to be one hell of a summer.
So to fully understand why this tour was nuts, we have to quickly go through some Van Halen lore. I'll be glossing over a lot of stuff, but hey, if Stephen Hawking was able to summarize a brief history of time in under 250 pages, a brief history of Van Halen singers will have to settle for a couple paragraphs. After David Lee Roth left the band in 1985, Van Halen replaced him with established solo artist Sammy Hagar. Sammy picked up where Dave left off, and Van Halen continued to be one of the most successful rock bands of the era. As the years rolled on, Dave and his former bandmates would continue to take shots at each other, but Sammy largely stayed out of it. He mostly kept his mouth shut, but there was that one time he referred to David Lee Roth as a goofball.
I am shocked and appalled.
In 1996, Hagar left the band after a dispute regarding their new manager. According to Sammy, it was at that point in 1997 he called up David Lee Roth with an idea to tour together, but Dave didn't want to hear it. Turns out, Dave already had plans. He was getting back together with Van Halen, baby. They did a soft launch at that year's MTV Video Music Awards, but then Dave danced too much during Beck's acceptance speech or something, so Eddie and Alex Van Halen kicked him out again. Instead, they chose former Extreme frontman Gary Cherone as the new lead singer, but he was not well received, so he was quickly gone. They again brought back David Lee Roth to record songs for a best of album, and never mind, they kicked him out again.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap!
The rumor is that during all this turmoil, a concert promoter offered huge amounts of money for a full Van Halen tour, complete with Sammy and Dave both singing with the band. Despite the apparently astronomical financial offer, the Van Halen brothers turned it down, which led to Roth calling Hagar about that idea Sammy had back in 1997. Like the old proverb says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Hey, it's good enough for United States Cold War foreign policy. It's good enough for the guy that sang Yankee Rose, right? It started off great. Both men took responsibility for past negative comments and agreed to start fresh. As they were negotiating, Dave's idea for the tour was based on pro wrestling. It'd be a co-headlining tour that would see both men playing up their animosity and competing musically on what would be called the pound for pound, song for song, heavyweight champs of rock and roll tour. They'd flip a coin and then alternate who opened and closed every night. They'd split the stage time and the money evenly, 50-50. Sammy thought that idea sucked. Hagar felt he was already an established solo act and shouldn't be opening for a guy he saw as washed up. To be fair to Sammy, Dave wasn't exactly lighting up the charts at the time, and Sammy thought he'd be taking a financial hit if he had to split the money evenly with Dave. Sammy's management talked him into it by playing to Sammy's ego and reminding him that by opening for Dave, he could prove he was better by blowing him off the stage every night. They held a press conference to officially announce the pound for pound. I'm not doing that again. I'm just going to do what everyone else did. I'm going to call it the Sans Halen Tour. Watching the two of them do press together at the time is wild. This is Sammy at his Caboist and his Waboist, as Sammy Hagar was a brand that believed in living Mas tequila. Dave, on the other hand, Rolling Stone described his look as a mutation of Carol Channing, Iggy Pop, and Don Knotts. For those keeping score at home, F. Carol Channing, marry Don Knotts, kill Iggy Pop. They didn't just have different philosophies on fashion, they had different philosophies on music. Dave's setlist for the tour was almost entirely Van Halen with one Dave original in there. He thought, hey, people are coming to see the Van Halen singers, so you got to give the people what they want. Sammy's mindset was, you can't do exclusively Van Halen songs without Eddie and Alex. Instead, he did primarily his own solo stuff with a few Van Hagar hits thrown in there. It was a unique dichotomy for sure. David Lee Roth told MTV News that he thought the vibes of the tour would be a cross between Jimmy Buffett and Limp Bizkit. As the young kids say nowadays, the vibes are off. The coin flip officially took place on neutral ground, the Howard Stern Show. Dave was in studio while Sammy was at home in California. It's not a full train wreck per se, but there is tension largely exacerbated by David Lee Roth's inability to stop talking. I don't know if there's a more emblematic example of the chaos to come than this clip of everyone talking over each other.
You don't think they'll be rocking for Hot for Teacher?
Of course they will.
I'm a fan myself.
Knees and elbows for days. Every single song that I do, people are going, oh, I know this song. I love that song. I knew that one.
There was 2 eras that worked.
Right now, Sammy Hagar is regretting his decision to do this. David Lee Roth won the coin toss and headlines the first show, which will never come up again because there certainly won't be any conflict over the co-headlining stipulation everybody agreed to. The tour officially hit the ground running on May 29th. Sammy opened on that night and set forth on his mission to musically destroy David Lee Roth. I am a neutral observer here. I have never and will never have a super strong opinion on Sam versus Dave. I can only go by the reviews I found from 2002, and the consensus is Sammy completed his mission. His goal was to outshine Dave, and he brought out his entire arsenal. His show had everything. A killer band, bikini girls, Dan Cortez. Alright, not Dan Cortez. He brought fans on stage. He brought Van Halen bassist Mike Anthony on stage. As for Dave, well, let's hear Sammy read the reviews.
Late in his set, Roth ill-advisedly and abetted by ego appeared with an acoustic guitar for Ice Cream Man, demonstrating in one more way that another sort of David Lee Roth unplugged might be a very good idea.
You'd expect Dave to focus on a more theatrical stage show, but he went a different route. Dave opted for no gimmicks, not including whatever that one on his head was, and instead focused on the music, man. Of course, he was going to do his kicks and his karate, but his ultimate goal was to musically knock Sammy Hagar out with straight up rock and roll. It just didn't turn out that way. One of the problems was Dave couldn't sing like he used to. One of Sammy's big gripes about Dave has always been that Diamond Dave didn't take care of his voice. To be fair, there are positive reviews out there, but more often than not, you'll find a reviewer complimenting Sam and dissing Dave. As the tour went on, the tensions grew. As to why the tensions started getting so bad, David Lee Roth later said it was a case of 2 dogs, 1 dog bowl. Sammy Hagar later said David Lee Roth was a bald-headed asshole. So, agree to disagree, I guess. Despite the hopes of fans, the two of them never shared a stage. Sammy was open to the idea, but Dave never went for it. Osmosis Jones' voice actor Kid Rock, of all people, got Roth to agree to perform as Sammy, but the next night Roth backed out, citing vocal issues. It wouldn't be the last time David Lee Roth went back on something he agreed to. Once the Los Angeles date came, David Lee Roth demanded they add a second show so he would get a chance to close too. The headliner thing between them was becoming a real sticking point. Sammy thought he had essentially brought Dave out of the musical gutter and was doing him a favor on this tour, so he was incensed when Dave would pull these power plays. On top of all that, Sam thought Dave was stinking up the joint, so why shouldn't Sammy just be the permanent headliner? It wasn't just an ego thing about the status of closing the show, as the headliner also got better accommodations than the opener, which drove Sam nuts.
I got this little piddly-ass room. I've sold 70 million records in my life. I've headlined every venue in the world. And I'm an opening act tonight.
At this point, even I'm starting to wonder if I'm coming across as a Sammy Hagar over David Lee Roth guy. All these stories paint Roth in a bad light, and there's good reason for that. During the tour, David Lee Roth just stopped talking to the press. It's hard to imagine David Lee Roth choosing to not talk about anything. The dude made a 30-minute video about his history with pro wrestling and decided, you know what, that's only part 1. I've been watching wrestling my entire life, and even I tap out after 15 minutes. I know what Sammy was feeling in 2002 because he was telling everyone who would listen. With Dave, I have to try and guess what's going on in his head, which is frightening. A theory I saw bandied about that makes the most sense to me is pretty simple. Dave just liked screwing with Sammy, and it drove Sammy nuts. It's conjecture, but there are some instances, including a night that Dave's bus supposedly broke down when he was supposed to open, only to conveniently arrive just as Sammy was finishing up his set. By the way, all this conflict wasn't a secret. Everyone knew they hated each other while the tour was happening. Fox even offered them money to come on and celebrity box each other. Of course, both men turned it down while saying they could totally kick the other guy's ass. I don't want to get off track, but I got Dave in that one. I am biased though, because I really only said that so I could put it in this clip of him messing around with a sword. Turns out, they didn't need Fox's money to fight, as they apparently did come to blows during the tour. If you're playing a drinking game based around how many times I say the word allegedly, call an Uber to take you to the hospital now. Allegedly, the fight came when Dave pulled 1 power play too many. Sammy was scheduled to close the New York City leg of the tour, but Dave allegedly decided he wanted them to change the venue to Madison Square Garden instead. And he wanted to close. At that point, Sammy had enough and unloaded on Dave in page 6 of the New York Post. He makes fun of his voice, he makes fun of his hair, or lack thereof, and compares him to Liberace. This interview allegedly led to a confrontation between Hagar and Roth, where Roth confronted Sammy over his remarks and if Sammy allegedly called him a very specific gay slur. In Sammy's versions of events, bodyguards and Hagar's band get involved after a small scuffle. In Dave's version of events, he cussed out Sammy, who backed down before Dave could allegedly use karate on him. A partition was built at all venues to basically separate them. The two of them did not interact for the rest of the tour, with one always vacating the premises and the other was performing. The tour dragged on before ending unceremoniously in September as Sammy canceled the last remaining shows due to illness. He was probably actually sick, but it's funny to bring back that Howard Stern predicted the scenario months ago.
Is there a chance you will go out on tour and then about a month later we'll read that one of you is very ill and can't go on with the tour?
The tour was over, but Sam and Dave had one final stop to make. They wrapped up their Uneasy alliance by presenting an award together at the 2002 Video Music Awards, and it is awkward.
So anyways, let's get on. Best rock video, what? Something like that?
This is the best rock video. In fact,
In our day.
what is your favorite Linkin Park song, Sam?
I don't know any Linkin Park songs.
What do we do? Where's the teleprompter? Okay, nominees for the best rock. Take a look.
They disliked each other so much that during rehearsals, Sammy had to do fake banter with this rando. And that was the end of the failed experiment of the pound for pound song. Nope, still not doing it. The Sans Halen tour. Both men would admit there was animosity, but downplayed just how much they hate each other. Sam would blame the media for playing up how bad the conflicts were.
We're all trying to find the guy who did this.
Sammy went back to Van Halen before they fell apart again. Now you're not going to believe this, but Van Halen then recruited David Lee Roth as their singer. Shockingly, this time, it stuck. Roth stayed with the band until the passing of Eddie Van Halen a couple years ago. Tension between Sam and Dave has just gotten worse through the years, especially on Sam's end. So much, I decided to make a fun little montage of it.
What a goofball. To me, he entertains me. When I see him, I go, look at this guy. Now look at him. Look what he's doing. It's entertainment. His run in Van Halen, I can tell you straight up right now, the early Van Halen stuff is killing. I was as big a fan as anybody. But where he's taken it today, I'm sorry, I have no respect for the way the guy sings. He doesn't care about singing. If he did, he'd take care of his voice, or he'd take voice lessons, he'd warm up, he'd do something, because the guy sings so bad last time he was doing shows, it was embarrassing to me when people say, oh, you were in Van Halen. I'm going, no.
I do subscribe to the rock and roll fairness doctrine, so we should probably get Dave's side of things. Yeah, that's all I got. A weird drawing David Lee Roth did once. I'm not stupid. I know Dave has taken pot shots at Sammy over the years, but they're a lot harder to find. I did find this clip of him talking on Opie and Anthony about his relationship with Sammy way back in 2013.
Did you and Sammy Hagar ever get along?
No, won't define long.
Wait a minute, that sounds familiar. I know I heard that before.
Well, let's define get along.
Yep, that would be David Lee Roth using the exact same line a decade earlier. Somewhere, Sammy Hagar is screaming that I made his point for him. One of Sammy's contentions was he feels David Lee Roth isn't a real person, he is just a series of prepared statements. To Sammy Hagar, he is a better singer, a better musician, and a better person than David Lee Roth, and that 2002 tour proved it. If I had to guess what David Lee Roth would say about this, I'd guess, zibbity dibbity bop, I don't know man, who knows what goes on inside that dude's brain. You've made it this far, and I guess the logical final question you need to know is, just who was the pound for pound, song for song, heavyweight champ of rock and roll? I think it's pretty obvious. Gary Cherone. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe. If you're a David Lee Roth fan, if you go to the description, there's other sources of people who paint Dave in a more positive light than I did. I feel kind of bad about it, but not really, because I don't actually know David Lee Roth. But anyways, check the description. There's some podcasts and some other videos I think are great if you're interested in learning more about this.